Hey, good morning, Victoria. It is Thursday, July 18th, 2024, and this is the Victoria Real Estate Show with Andrew Plank and Jen Lowe. And today we do not have Jane Johnston because she is busy with a new listing going live. Um, so, hi, Jen, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
Great, really good. So today, folks, we're going to talk about, well, Jen, why don't you tell us what we're going to talk about?
Well, we're going to go through the stats and we're going to talk about some tips around mortgage renewals and a quick update in the mortgage world.
Excellent. Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, we want to know what's going on out there because all these different changes to interest rates and what's going on, and everybody's got that one as the big question on their minds. So, all right, so let's dive into this. And that's going to be here. So first of all, of course, if you are a regular on this show, please remember to like and subscribe. If you're not a regular, by all means, please like and subscribe. We do appreciate your comments, and of course, share if there's something of use and value to you in this. We really appreciate that. So, Jen, I will take the first column here, and why don't we try you on the second column? We usually, Jane and I take that as the realtors, but we're going to delegate today. So today, July 18th, in the last week, we had 301 new properties go to market. 183 properties went pending. There were 178 price decreases. That's quite a number of price decreases. 0 price increases, 4 back on market. 196 transacted in the last week. Again, often happens at the beginning of the month and mid-month. 66 properties expired unsold and 9 were withdrawn for whatever reason. So let's compare that to the week before.
So the week before we had 340 new listings, 146 went pending, 172 price decreases, 4 price increases, 7 back on the market, and 133 properties were sold. 46 expired and 2 were withdrawn.
Okay. So comparing week from week, it looks like we're down a little bit on new listings this week, but up on properties going pending. And that's good to see overall. Our inventory, we want to see our inventory start to come down a little bit, but it's nice to see more properties going pending. Certainly, we are still seeing lots of sales happening. So we're definitely still in an active market. Yeah.
What's the reason for price?
And then the price. So that's usually user error. Like if an agent has posted a home for sale for $100,000 instead of $1 million, and their phone blows up.
Right.
So that's usually the reason. Or they had it in their mind they were listing at $999,999, and then they double checked the contract and it said, oh no, it was 1 million round figure. So it's usually user error. Every once in a while, somebody might raise the price. There might be a legitimate marketing reason for doing that. I sometimes do actually a reverse prospect. I look at how many more searches a property would show up in if the price was changed, and that's usually based on a decrease. But I'll sometimes also I always look also at what happens if we were to increase price and how many more searches would show up. And that would be a case where if you were at 999,000, let's say, and you change to 1 million, maybe you're going to find people that are searching only from 1 million to 1,300,000, and they're in a automated search that's only capturing that, and they're not seeing that price. That would be silly, but that's one of the reasons. Yeah. I hope I didn't over-explain that, but
no, that's it's interesting.
Yeah. So it's a funny one that we track, and I don't really think we need to really track a number of these metrics. The main ones, folks, that we want to see here are the first 3, and really then the second last, the number of expired. and the rest are less important. Yeah. So as of Monday, and these figures track up to date current month. So as of Monday, July 15th, for this year, we had 285 unconditional sales. So halfway through the month, 285 sales. Compared to the full month last year, we had 595. And then new listings coming on market, 663 halfway through the month. And compared to last year, we're probably on point to be around the same, considering we're halfway through the month, and double that, we're actually up above 1,300. But I would expect to see less and less listings coming on as we get deeper into summer. And active listings currently 3,417 compared to 2,419 in July 2023. So, and then we tend to track the week before as well. So just to see if we are on track. And so within a week of being in the month of July, we had 134 unconditional sales, 338 new listings. So, about the same listings coming on per week, about the same number of sales per week, maybe increased just a little bit week over week. And the main one here to see is that our inventory still is going up week over week. So that's interesting. We're getting up into some higher inventory numbers. Anything you're seeing there, Jen, or want to?
I always like seeing the numbers, as it really does kind of confirm why I'm busy or why I'm not busy.
Yeah.
It really does,
Right.
yeah. So I enjoy, I've definitely, my business has picked up. I've had a few purchases recently in the condo market.
In the condo market, a few purchases. And have you talked to colleagues, or are you hearing anything about any upticks in the condo market? Because that's been one that's been a little stale for a little bit.
I think it's that people are expecting and seeing some price reductions with condos due to a lot of supply.
Yeah.
And people are capitalizing on that.
Absolutely. It's always about that stretch between, if the housing market is doing better than the condo market, then the housing market prices will continue to go up, or the inventory will go down. And so at some point, the stretch gets too wide of a gap, and people start to look again at condos, because either the price is starting to look really good or the selection is really good.
Right.
So there's always that interplay, and there's always a point where it's like, maybe it's time to start looking at these.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, Jen, you had a topic for us. Do you have some information there?
Yeah, and diving into mortgage renewals a little bit here. As we were chatting prior to the show, pulled up a statistic in 2024. So in this year and in 2025, there's 2.2 million mortgages coming up for renewal in Canada. So that is 45% of our country's outstanding mortgages will be up for renewal.
So 45% of all our country's mortgages are up for renewal within the next 2 years?
2 years.
Okay. And how different is that from normal? Because it's a 5-year span usually. And so you would think that 50% of renewals would always be coming up within a 2.5-year window anyway. Is this significant? Is this different?
If we go back 4 to 5 years and see where that market was.
Yeah.
And it was crazy.
Right.
Lots of people were buying,
right.
4.5, 5 years ago. So that's why it's just that much crazier.
This is like the baby boomer bubble. We watch it like track over time, and we can see all these renewals are coming closer and closer because everybody locked in at that one time. Yeah.
When
and
rates were really, really low, it was obviously, a great time to get into the market, and no one could have predicted, what we dealt with over the last few years. So it's very important and to work with a mortgage broker as opposed to working just directly with your bank. As like myself, mortgage brokers are shopping the market to get you the best rate and making sure we're finding a mortgage that meets your needs as opposed to just fitting within the box of your particular bank.
Right. So I've heard that. I mean, so there's two elements to this, I guess. But if you're with a mortgage, if you're in a mortgage that's coming up for renewal, you're going to get quoted. You can just automatically re-renew with the company you were with, but you might be paying a higher percentage than you could if you were to change the horse you're riding, and there's no cost of changing horse.
Exactly.
Right.
As well as there's options in finding, there's different buckets that mortgages are put into, and that's probably the easiest way to explain it. That when a lender provides renewal rates, just, based on, here's, for example, one this past week, 5.67% for a 5-year fixed term. So I immediately look at that and I go, no, we can get you 4.84. And sometimes there's strategies around that for how we can get that lower rate, but it's partly because the bucket that your current lender has your mortgage in, you can't offer the lower rates of another lender because they're putting your mortgage in a different bucket.
And that's to do also with the bucket that you were originally placed in, let's say 5 years ago, right?
Exactly.
So the bank is still seeing you from the lens of 5 years ago and renewing you based on that.
Yeah.
And so I was hearing, for example, maybe you've paid down some of your mortgage. Maybe you now qualify for an insured mortgage, or maybe for an extended amortization. Maybe there's some other things you could be doing with your mortgage than just blindly re-renewing at a higher price.
Yeah. Another one I've had this past week, their current lender, the best variable they could get was prime minus 0.5%. Plus, because they're in a variable rate mortgage, their amortization was up to over 33 years, I believe. Yes, 33 years, because of their payment didn't change as the rates changed. So I'm able to get him a rate of prime minus 0.95 at no cost to him to transfer his mortgage to a different lender. Nice. Okay. And get him, a lower amortization, 25-year amortization.
Okay.
So
okay.
It definitely, it's no cost to reach out to your mortgage broker and inquire, about your renewal options. And I'm very upfront. Let's see what we can do. If I can get you a better rate, let's get the ball rolling. If not, you know what? Sign on the dotted line with your lender.
Yeah, because there's no harm in checking around. You've still got the fallback of renewing, generally speaking, with your current lender. Do you, given that this hump of larger renewal is coming up, do you anticipate banks or lenders doing anything to kind of prepare for that, make themselves either more competitive, or is there concerns around people, I don't know, maybe not being what could be some of the consequences of this focus of renewals coming up over a shorter span of time?
You'd think that your bank, or everybody wants to believe that your bank really wants your business and that you do all your banking there, so they're going to give you the lowest rate. But that's really, unfortunately, not the case very often. Right. And it really depends at certain times of the year. Every particular bank is more aggressive in certain markets. We've just kind of come out of a time, honestly, that RBC has been extremely aggressive. TD was extremely aggressive rate-wise, but they've totally cooled that off and are not giving us these really low rates that we've been getting over the last little while.
Okay.
So then I go, okay, I switch and I'll start focusing on a different bank and getting those lower rates.
Okay. And do you think though that with, there's that high idea of supply and demand. So when there's a much higher demand on renewals, are the banks going to say, well, we can be a little less giving, or do you feel like there's going to be more competition given what we're going to be seeing coming up here with higher renewals? I know it's hard to predict, but I mean, what's your gut feeling?
It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
Because it depends on how much background work that the banks are going to do. So I know lots of people are concerned, well, will I qualify? I mean, rates have gone up so much. Would I even qualify? So it is hard to say. I mean, if people's credit has been hit significantly because, they've had to utilize credit cards more, it's disappointing, but their bank may try and capitalize on that. But my point is there's always options, and it doesn't hurt. Just reach out to your mortgage broker, or I'm happy to help, obviously, and see if there's what the best options are for you.
It's, I never do understand, like, it doesn't cost you anything to get a second opinion. It doesn't even cost you much time or energy to go through the process of doing the second opinion, and can save you a considerable amount of money. So, it just, my whole approach to life is like, why not look at your options before making a decision? And especially when it's harder to do when you've left it till the last minute, right? But if you've got the time, what's coming up, you can approach. And this is just the same with us in real estate. When somebody comes to me at the last minute and says, I've got to move within the next couple of months or weeks, that's a lot more pressure to make something happen. But if you've come sooner, even a year away, and said, what do I need to do to get my home ready for market? And I'm considering these renovations. I'm considering maybe some repairs, that might help. And then there's time to give that advice and to get everything aligned up, so that when it comes to market, it's better prepared. But just like bring yourself knowledge, and reach out to someone like Jen if you are one of those 45% of people that are coming up in the next couple of years, because it is really, really important. And
the biggest thing too is that I'm going to, once we can secure a rate for you up to 4 months before your renewal date. Lots of people are wanting to hold off on doing that because they're hoping that rates are going to go down. So they don't want to get that ball rolling.
Right.
I understand that piece with your bank, because your bank isn't going to keep following up with you and say, oh, actually rates have dropped. We'll lower your rate for you. Whereas I will do that. I'm constantly watching, going, oh, actually, we've got 4 months here. We know your worst case scenario, but I'll continue to watch that. And it's probably one of my most favorite things that I do when I reach out to someone and I say, actually, your rate's now, instead of 5.19, we've been able to drop it to 5.04. It's a call to make.
And the opposite of that call, and the one that really is a not fun call, I'm sure, is when somebody has not locked in and left it till the last minute, and that if they'd locked in 3 months ago, that they would have had a lower rate because rates have shifted or changed in that window.
Exactly.
And that's really frustrating, because that if somebody was just to have made that call, you could have got the lock in and it'd be done. And folks, we can't predict the future. We can kind of look at it and make yes, we can predict it, but not accurately.
No. And I mean, the last few years prove that.
So we don't know that, we could assume that, interest rates will continue to go down, but there could be a spike in just right at that time before you are going to renew. So these are the things that make, purchasing a home affordable or not affordable, make, your renewal for the next 5 years of what you're paying your mortgage. It's whether you have the spare money for extra coffees, or, that trip at the end of the year, or what have you, can make a difference based on just what you're doing for mortgage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And next week, July 24th, the Bank of Canada is meeting again. Currently, after the inflation numbers came out, inflation dropped just slightly in June. So currently, according to Bloomberg News, there's 90% prediction that there is going to be a drop July 24th.
That's good news to hear. Thank you, Jen. And that's the prediction, folks. We don't know for sure.
There we go. We don't know for sure. But
yeah, I saw the same. It looks like things are going in the direction that the bank wants to see it, and it's certainly not great news for economy, I guess, in a sense, but it is good news for interest rates.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else on your mind?
That's all I got.
Okay. I guess one question, I think we've talked about this before, but are you seeing more people doing mostly the 5-year renewal, or are people opting for shorter renewals on the hope that even later on they'll find even better rates?
It depends. With people that are really wanting that peace of mind, we are still doing 5-year fixed rates, as the outlook really honestly is that the variable rates are going to come down, but the fixed rates are not expected to come down. So if you want that peace of mind and guarantee of knowing what your rate's going to be, going with a 5-year fixed can be the best way to go. But we are definitely also doing more variables, and I'm doing some 3-year fixed terms.
Okay. You interact with a lot of realtors, and let's turn it around. So I'm answering some questions. Maybe you're asking some.
Yeah.
Do you have, what do you kind of see? I guess, what do you see realtors should know, shouldn't know, or what would you like to know about the market? Throw something my way.
With regards to how market in Victoria? Well, I'm really curious about this change with tenanted properties.
Yeah. Okay. And Jan and I talked a little bit about that last week. Anything specific about it, or should I just dive in general?
Dive in. Yeah. Let me know.
Yeah.
What's the update?
So the provincial government has made a number of changes, and I don't have them all at the top of my head, but the main one impacting real estate sales would be, I would say, the fact that you now need to give 4 months, full 4 months notice to tenants if you tend to occupy the space for landlord's use. And that's really common, that a buyer is buying a property and they want it for their own purposes. They're going to need to give notice to the tenants. And generally, how that's done is they make an offer on the property, and included in the offer is a provision that says the seller will give notice to those tenants after that buyer has removed conditions. And it has to be obviously legal notice, and the buyer has to, in good faith, intend to occupy the space. In the past, it was 2 months. And that worked within the window of mortgage financing approvals. It worked within the window of, I believe in, there's this idea of chaos theory, that the longer something is running, the more room for chaos to work into the system. And so one reason why, for example, I ask my sellers to demand a higher deposit if it's a long closing is because the longer it is from the time that the agreement was made to when it closes, property closes, it's going to be more risk of something happening for the buyers in their circumstances and them not being at the table at the closing. So a higher deposit is important. And we're seeing with this change, this 4-month change, that we're going to have a lot of buyers, if they really want to have a vacant home and not take on a tenant, have to have a closing 5 months down the road. That's a long ways away for sellers to wait and for buyers to also wait. And just a lot more room for something going wrong. So
is there an opportunity, though, like if it's mutually agreed upon by all parties, do you have to follow that 4-month guideline?
Not if it's mutually agreed. So they call it in Ontario, the words, they've been calling this thing cash for keys. And, some tenants are even holding landlords almost feet to the fire, because they're saying, hey, if you want me out, you're going to pay me to be out. Otherwise, I'm going to contest this notice and make it really hard. But even if it's cooperative, it can still be in a mutual agreement to end tenancy. And that usually involves some additional compensation to the tenant. They're not just going to sign on the dotted line and agree to leave. But if you do get everyone's agreement that they will leave, then that's a good, happy place for all parties. But it will cost probably, whether the buyer has to pay a premium to the seller who pays the tenant, or the seller, eats something, the tenant will generally be compensated for having to leave early, and they would have to agree to it. It has to be a mutual agreement. Yeah. So that's entirely possible, but it's rarer, and I think we'll see more of it.
And the buyers, if they're not going to move into the property, do they have to give the current tenants opportunity to stay there?
If they're not planning on moving into the property, then they have no right to vacant possession or to request the tenants to leave. Unless there's, there are some provisions, like if you're doing a massive renovation, but you have to look at exactly how the language is written because it's very prescribed. So generally speaking, if you're planning to occupy the property, the tenant can legally be given notice. If you're buying it as an investment property, this is a misunderstanding that many buyers do have. They think, well, I'm going to buy the place, I'll kick out the tenants, I'll bring in new tenants, I'll get current rent, it's going to be great. But you're not allowed to do that. The tenants are protected. Current tenancy transfers to the new owners. There's no way of getting them out, again, unless you buy them out, and it's going to be costly, because somebody paying $1,200 a month rent for a place that would currently rent for $2,400 a month, they are going to be wanting a fairly high payout. And of course, there is also a penalty to kicking people out that's prescribed by the government. So if you did kick someone out under bad faith and they actually left and didn't fight it, but then found that you had re-rented the unit to someone else within I think it used to be 6 months and now it's 1 year period. If I'm wrong on that, forgive me. Please double check all of these rules. But if you have been found to have re-rented in bad faith, then you will be paying. And now it used to be 6 months penalty. Now it's 1 year's penalty of the rent. So that's probably the maximum it's gonna cost you to kick someone out. And again, it might be a business decision to do a bad faith eviction, but the tenant can certainly, if they got wind of that, can certainly fight it. And I should preface all this with, I am not a licensed rental property manager. So check all of that stuff. I'm so surprised by so many people who are either considering having tenants or have tenants already, and they're not familiar with, have not, just even the basics of the Residential Tenancy Act, and especially on tenants' rights and giving notice. So important, really, really important.
Yeah.
But that's the major change that I'm seeing. The other major part of that is you have to give notice now through an online portal. And I believe that's starting today. I think it was the 18th that it's become effective. So there's an online portal, and I'm not sure of the mechanism of it because I'm curious how, let's say, the retired person who doesn't have email would be given notice if you're doing notice through a portal, and when is notice considered given. But it probably walks you through. But at least you're registering now that you've given notice through this portal, whereas before you would just print out a form, fill it out, and post it on the door and take a picture for proof. So now there's the portal. And that gives the government a lot more insight, I guess, into how many who and how many suites are out there and who's reporting
More
them.
information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More information. And yeah, so those are all things that we want to be aware of, and we want to know that, you know, you can't now, if you weren't aware of this and you go and post notice on the door tomorrow using the old system, it won't be considered having given notice. So it's really important, again, to always be on top of these things and check the most current processes. But I mean, the big question for me is, how is this going to affect the real estate market? And I feel like one of the knock-on effects that might happen is that buyers will be a lot more reluctant to purchase a rental property if they want it for their own purposes, because they don't want to wait, they don't want the risk. So we'll see a boost in resale of properties that are owner occupied, and maybe a bit of a falling off of rental properties, unless it's those people are buying it as an investment anyway.
Have you noticed a big change or lots of Airbnbs that have been listed, or previous Airbnbs listed?
Condos, yes. In the last, since the legislation came out, there was initially quite a number that came up downtown, and the downtown condo market was, I wouldn't call it exactly flooded, but those properties were harder to sell, especially the ones that were almost purpose Airbnb. Like, I like to use the Janyan as an example. It's a building downtown right on the water, and some of the units have beautiful views, but they're tiny, they're micro units. And as such, not anybody will want to live in there for more than maybe a week at a time. So they make a great Airbnb, but they do not make a great owner occupied space. But now they are illegal as Airbnb. The other thing that I understand or heard is that there was confusion around the Airbnb rules, because some Airbnb owners read that as that the Airbnb is allowed in an owner occupied home.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's what the province has said. You know, we will, but we're not allowing it in a single space. Like, you can't, if you're not occupying the space, and that's why condos are hit. But you also couldn't rent your whole house out as Airbnb. There has to be, you have to have it owner occupied. You could actually leave for a week and Airbnb it, but a lot of people took that as green light on just being Airbnb in general. But you're still subject to your municipal bylaws, and that's where, again, if you do search on the Airbnb websites, you'll still see Airbnbs coming up in Oak Bay, for example. Airbnbs are not allowed in Oak Bay, according to the municipal bylaws. So,
Yes.
So I'm not seeing housing Airbnb coming up, because I wouldn't say it's a large percentage of our market. So I don't know what people are doing around it. I do suspect that if somebody had investment properties, they're going to have to either transfer them to rentals, which I understand too, for those people in condos as a tax hit, because you're changing the use and ownership. But anyway, that's outside of my area, but it is. I'm not seeing. I would say we're not seeing a big, huge hump in listings.
Right. Not what I expected. I figured there would be a lot more listings, and it would have had a real hit on the market.
I just don't see that many Airbnbs out there. I mean, it's kind of like when the federal government and the provincial government did sort of foreign buyer ban type stuff. Is a small percentage of the market that's being bought by foreign buyers anyway.
Right.
So it really didn't impact our market in any significant way. And I'd say the same go for, if you had an Airbnb, you're probably 1 in 100 properties. And then you have to be one of those people within that cohort of Airbnb owners to decide it's now time to sell it, as opposed to, put it into rental market or leave it regular rental market or what have you. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. So that's that. Any other questions for this old guy?
No.
I'm wearing my old man jacket with, oh no, this is not the one. Never mind.
Oh, do you have the patches on that?
Yeah, I don't have the patches on this one. Yeah, my old professor jacket. Okay, well, Jen, how do people reach you if they want to ask questions about these upcoming renewals?
Yeah, I'm at 250-217-4925. Email address is jen@jenlo.ca, and my website is jenlo.ca.
Thank you, Jen. And then if you have questions for me, I'm at 250-360-6106. Email is info@andrewplank.com, and the website andrewplank.com. And again, Instagram at plankandrew. So, okay, there you are. And I'm going to say again, Jane was not able to join us today. She was busy with photos and video and media for her new listing. So I'm going to just, in honor of Jane, tell you that you can reach her at 744-0775. That's 250-744-0775. Her email, briarhillgroup@gmail.com. And check out her website, briarhillgroup.com as well. She's also got the Victoria Real Estate Show, where she used to do shows like this. And now she also hosts these shows there as well, as do I on my website. And her Instagram is a long read, realty teacher _Remax _Victoria. There you go. Okay, Jen, we will see you next week. I hope you had a great time on the lake last week. We missed you.
I'm still catching up from sleep. Sleeping on a houseboat isn't the easiest, but it was a lot of fun.
Well, I bet there was a lot going on the houseboat too. So, you might be wanting to go to sleep and other people are up. It's a small space.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's like having in a small trailer. There was 8 of us in a small space for 3 nights, but it was a lot of fun.
I've never done it. And so folks, Jen, can I share this?
Yeah.
Jen was at Sprout Lake last week on a houseboat with some friends. I've heard of friends doing this before. It sounds super fun. Never done it. Do I have to do it? I do like my sleep, Jen, so I'm not so sure now.
Well, that was my challenge too. So you're just gonna have to put your sleep aside for a couple nights.
Okay. All right. I've got earplugs. When we were away a couple weeks ago with my dad and the boys, Dad and I actually shared a room. I had to have really good earplugs in to overcome his.
But that's all part of the fun, right?
That's exactly right. Exactly right. It was great to spend time with everyone. It was a little too much at points, but it was great.
Yes.
Okay. We'll see you next week. Thanks everybody for watching. Really appreciate your time that you give us, and we'll be back again.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.